Hi. Every year, our trust in politicians seems to hit a new low. Ministers used to resign over small things, but today ministers hardly ever resign or step down. My question is, do you think the PM should launch an independent inquiry into the rape allegations against Christian Porter?
I think we just need to be clear, it's a single allegation, not multiple. Christian Porter does strenuously deny this allegation that has been put. Susan McDonald.
This is a tragedy, and I feel so deeply both for the woman who's concerned and for her family. I can't begin to imagine. We do have a system of justice in this country. We do have a police service that is well-resourced and the most capable of understanding whether or not some evidence needs to go to trial, and they have closed the matter. I don't think that this is an easy subject, but we can't have a situation where allegations equate to guilt. And I think that the Minister has made a full statement, and I think that we need to have some justice in the law and the rules of the land, because otherwise, you know, do we become a kangaroo court and a court of public opinion?
What about justice for the victim?
All of us who have family, people in our lives who may ever be unjustly accused, that we want them to have a right of reply. That is our legal system.
But we keep talking about justice for the accused. What about justice for the victim? What about justice for the victim? We've, you know, I'm infuriated by this because I'm sick and tired of the lip service that we hear in Parliament about hearing victims' voices, about listening to women, about respect for women. And right now is a moment. Right now is a moment for the Prime Minister to show leadership here and action. Not just words. And what did he do? He came out and he said, oh, well, I've asked him if he did it, and he said no, and that's enough for me. And then suddenly you've got all of these men invoking justice, justice, justice. Where was justice and procedural fairness for all the victims of robo-debt? Yeah?
Can we just be clear, though, about what you're actually asking for? What, if you're saying you want action, what is the action you want?
I want an inquiry. I think that this is a serious... I think, well, first of all, the police haven't closed it because South Australian police are still determining whether there is a coronial inquest to be undertaken.
And
so
that relates to the death of this individual. This is not in relation to the rape
And that may well
allegation.
be... Yeah, you're right, Hamish, and that may well be a process that opens up some more evidence or that either exonerates...
OK, but you're saying tonight you want action from the Prime Minister. I just want to establish what exactly you want.
I would like the Prime Minister to establish an independent inquiry. The fact that the police are not pursuing the matter for practical reasons does not preclude or prevent the Prime Minister from undertaking an inquiry into a very serious allegation that inquiry will either exonerate Christian Porter and prove his innocence as he is saying that he is innocent, or it will prove otherwise. Either way, this is a serious allegation and it needs to be treated seriously.
Just briefly, Dhanya, what kind of inquiry or investigation do you want specifically?
I think that there should be a High Court inquiry. We're talking about the Chief Law Officer of this country. I think it's appropriate as a result that the High Court is the body to examine the veracity of my friend's allegations. And I think, you know, it's insulting to suggest...
Just specifically, though, what do you mean? You're talking about a retired High Court justice?
Yes, retired High Court justice. Perhaps former Justice Bell would be an appropriate choice to examine these allegations. And for the purposes of that inquiry, the statement that my friend completed but was unable to sign because of COVID, of no fault of her own, because of COVID, should be deemed admissible for the purposes of that inquiry. And there's precedent for a deceased individual's allegations to be heard and justly inquired into in a legal process. I mean, that's what we saw in the George Pell case. We had a deceased complainant and due process was able to be upheld in that instance.
Sam Maiden?
Yeah, look, it's a great question that you have asked, and Noah, and I think that I actually share the concerns of some politicians, including the Prime Minister, that there is actually a problem with setting up a quasi-judicial process in Parliament to rule on criminal matters. And I think there is an argument that that's a poor precedent. So personally, I mean, what I would like to see is a coronial inquest. I think that there is a strong argument that the justice system has failed not only the alleged victim, but Christian Porter, because he has not been given the opportunity to be interviewed by police, to provide an affidavit, to have witnesses come forward. So,
can I just ask Susan McDonald, do you think that's important from Christian Porter's point of view? You're sort of saying here tonight you don't believe there should be any kind of other investigation, but should he not go through a process where his version of events is formally put?
Well, I think that we have a process which is the police. We put a lot of faith in them to do these kind of investigations.
Well, they've never interviewed Christian Porter.
The time, no, because he was not given the allegations prior to reading them in the newspaper.
Also, the delays in that process
on the
and
Friday.
the insufficient resources.
Just hold on a second, we'll just hear this.
I do think, though, that if we have a police process, we have a fabulous justice system in this land that has served us well. If we want to change that, then that's another conversation to have. But, you know, I think it works well for us, and they have deemed that there was not, that the matter was closed because there wasn't enough admissible evidence.
But the point I wanted to make, Hamish, was this, right? Christian Porter has a right to the presumption of innocence. He also has a right to his good name. So let him give sworn evidence, right? Now, a coronial inquiry is never going to rule on the criminal matter. That can't really happen anymore. But it would provide an opportunity for him to give his version of events, for a coroner to ask him questions about it, to ask questions about, you know, why this woman was released, you know, after she'd been under medical care and then forced to, as I understand it, quarantine at home by herself for 2 weeks. She rang the police during that process where she was obviously very distressed, and she said that she didn't want to proceed with the complaint. She cut her hair into the same style that she had had when the alleged incident occurred. Very upsetting and disturbing to people around her. And she died by suicide the next day. So clearly all of these events, you know, of the quarantine and the discussions with police, they're all connected. And that's something that a coronial inquiry can look at. And crucially, that's something that her family wants. And her family told news.com.au today that they will support what they described as any inquiry, whether it is the sort of inquiry that you're talking about or a coronial inquest. And that's what I think should happen, because I think that Christian Porter should be given that opportunity. And if, as he says, this never happened, this is a shocking allegation that has destroyed his life, he should have the opportunity to say that and put his hand on the Bible and give sworn evidence.